Do you like teenage girls?
When you say teenage, how old are we talking?
Girls who are teenagers,
19?
19 and younger.
I have some 19-year-old friends, but I don't like anybody illegal if that's what we're talking about, underage.
Uh-huh.
What happens when your childhood abuser becomes the voice inside your head? The predator you eventually become? The monster behind R.Kelly was shaped by the cycles of abuse in his childhood, a monster that would go to the lengths of abusing his own daughter. Behind the chart-topping hits and Grammy Awards lurked a predator with a criminal enterprise dedicated to exploiting young girls. But before he built this empire of abuse, he was just a scared child, suffering violations that would twist his understanding of power, sex, and control forever. In this video, we're doing a deep dive into R. Kelly's criminal activities and the dark psychology motivating his actions. This is episode 2 of Inside the Minds of Celebrity Predators, Their Dark Beginnings. Born in 1967, Chicago, Robert Sylvester Kelly grew up in the B. Wells Public Housing Project, a dangerous neighborhood in Chicago. After his father abandoned the family, he was raised by his mother, Joanne Kelly, and his grandmother. At home, Kelly and his brothers were disciplined with whippings. On one occasion, Kelly's mother stabbed him in the arm with a knife that she was threatening him and his brother with. According to his autobiography, Kelly was being sexually abused by multiple women in his own household, including his older sister Teresa. This started when Kelly was only 6. People who should have protected him instead exploited him, robbing him of his innocence and fundamentally warping his understanding of love, power, and sexuality. According to the psychologist that evaluated him, this trauma likely contributed to his hypersexual behavior and impaired his cognitive ability. Even beyond sexual abuse, his childhood was marked by significant suffering. He struggled with dyslexia, making reading and writing difficult. This made school a daily humiliation and caused him to be bullied by classmates. All of it was almost too much to handle for young Kelly. Growing up, Kelly witnessed continuous gang violence in the neighborhood. Only at the age of 14, he was reportedly shot in the shoulder while riding his bike, although some people suggest it was self-inflicted due to depression. Without healthy ways to process his trauma, Kelly developed a profound need for control and validation. However, he found refuge in music, where he displayed natural aptitude despite his learning difficulties. At a school talent show, he performed Stevie Wonder's "Ribbon in the Sky," where he wore sunglasses to hide his nervousness. Watching him perform, his teacher, Lena McLean, recognized the extraordinary talent and encouraged him to pursue music. This marked a turning point, giving him confidence despite his continued shyness. By 1989, he'd been discovered performing on a Chicago street corner. It was there that music producer Mark Howard first heard the raw, undeniable talent that would later captivate the world. Howard was so impressed that he immediately connected Kelly with prominent industry figures, including Diddy, who recognized the gold mine of talent standing before them. By 1992, R. Kelly had secured a deal with Jive Records and released his first album, Born into the 90s. The album's hit single, She's Got That Vibe, put Kelly on the map. But few could have predicted that the same charisma that drew fans to his music would become the weapon he'd use to lure young victims into his world. Kelly began methodically targeting young girls. He would visit his old high school and local McDonald's, where students gathered. His entourage would approach teenagers, offering to introduce them to the famous R. Kelly.
The 6-part series interviewed 50 people, family members, your former tour manager, numerous women who all claim that you abused them, Are you saying everybody in that documentary was not telling the truth about you? Everybody?
Aspiring singers were lured in with promises of music industry success. Once at his studio, many were sexually assaulted. His first known victim, Tiffany Hawkins, was just 15 when they met. Initially, he played the role of protective older brother, offering refuge from her troubled home. But later he began sexually abusing her. Soon he was using her to recruit other underage girls, earning her the nickname Cable Girl. By 1996, Hawkins had become pregnant by Kelly. When she informed him, he denied paternity and refused testing. At that point, she attempted suicide and then filed a lawsuit with hundreds of potential witnesses. Kelly settled for $250,000 and a non-disclosure agreement, establishing a pattern he would use to silence victims for years to come. In 1994, the unthinkable happened. Kelly, then 27, secretly married 15-year-old rising R&B star Aaliyah. A decision that should have ended his career but somehow didn't. The marriage certificate falsely listed her as 18. Why the rush? According to his tour manager, Kelly married Aaliyah because she had become pregnant, and he believed marriage could protect him legally. The marriage was quickly annulled, but Kelly's predatory behavior continued unchecked. By the early 2000s, Kelly's methods had evolved into something resembling a cult. Women in his orbit described being forced to call him daddy and ask permission to eat or use the bathroom. Physical punishment awaited those who disobeyed. At his studio, multiple young girls would be kept in separate rooms, isolated from the outside world and each other. Their parents claimed the girls had little to no contact with their families and appeared brainwashed. Even their phones were confiscated and replaced with ones they could only use to contact Kelly or approved individuals.
I have a harem, a cult. I don't even really know what a cult is, but I know I don't have one,
A pivotal moment came when the Chicago Sun-Times received a video showing Kelly having sex with and urinating on a 14-year-old girl. In 2008, the trial ended in acquittal after the victim and her family denied her identity in the video. Years later, it would be revealed that Kelly had paid them $2 million to stay silent. Despite being indicted on 21 counts of child pornography, his career continued thriving. Chocolate Factory, released shortly after his arrest, sold over 500,000 copies in its first week. He even collaborated with major artists like Lady Gaga and Lil Wayne and secured endorsements. Kelly used his money to silence victims through settlements and non-disclosure agreements. His fame created a protective shield of fans unwilling to believe the worst, and perhaps most disturbingly, those who profited from his success. Record labels, concert promoters, radio stations turned a blind eye. It wasn't until the 2019 documentary Surviving R.Kelly that the tide truly turned. For the first time, victims were given faces and voices. The public outrage was immediate and overwhelming. Radio stations pulled his music. Streaming platforms removed him from playlists. The Mute R.Kelly movement gained momentum. Another new documentary was recently released, R.Kelly's Karma, A Daughter's Journey, where his biological daughter, Abby, claims Kelly molested her when she was around 8 years old, and that the incident set off a domino effect of trauma that included multiple suicide attempts and a stay in a psychiatric hospital. She said, "For a long time, I was in a really hard space mentally, and so I ended up in a mental hospital, a psych ward, whatever you want to call it," she says, "because I hit a point in my life where multiple times I had tried to take my own life." Now that's fucked up. On September 27th, 2021, justice finally arrived. Kelly was convicted of racketeering and violations of the Mann Act. In June 2022, he was sentenced to 30 years in prison, with additional convictions bringing his total sentence to 31 years. He won't be eligible for release until 2045. The psychological profile of Kelly's predatory behavior points directly to his unresolved childhood trauma. Studies show that abuse victims sometimes mistake their feelings about their trauma as passion or love, especially when the abuse involved someone they otherwise had positive feelings toward. But this explanation is no excuse. Kelly deliberately built systems of power and control specifically to enable his predatory behavior. He weaponized his childhood trauma rather than seeking help for it. His conviction represents more than just accountability for one man's crimes. It sparked vital conversations about society's failure to protect women from sexual predators, victims who were often dismissed or blamed rather than supported. R.Kelly's legacy, once defined by his musical genius, is now irrevocably tied to his crimes and the courage of survivors who brought him to justice, despite a system that protected him for decades. If you found this deep dive disturbing, you should also check out episode 1 of our Celebrity Predator series, where we uncovered the fucked up story of P. Diddy, revealing the truth and the trauma he went through in his childhood that shaped him to be the monster he is today. Watch it now, before they try to take it down. As always, stay safe and lock your doors.